clear that there is an urgent need to bridge the growing ICT gender gap. In the following exclusive interview, KTN's Eugene Anangwe speaks to UNICEF's Director General Irina Bokova. Take a look.
Hello there. Here's hoping that all is well with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Rwanda is definitely playing host to one of the biggest events in the ICT's calendar, that is Transform Africa. And this particular event has brought right in the country several people from different walks of life. And one of them is none other than the UNESCO Director General Irina Bokova, who's in Rwanda for the very first time. Welcome to Rwanda.
Thank you.
Probably we can start from there. We've just learned you from the Gisozi Genocide Memorial to pay tribute to the victims of the genocide against the Tutsis. Maybe before we delve into the conversation of Transform Africa today, your quick thoughts, first of all, on the transformation of Rwanda. You've landed here for the very first time. Some have been here before. They have had their stories to go back with. What would be yours?
I'm the first time in Rwanda, and I'm delighted to be for the first time in Rwanda for this major conference on Smart Africa that has become already a landmark into the new technologies, the partnerships with the private sector, the overall Africa Rise, I would say, strategy of the African Union. But it is not that I'm unfamiliar with Rwanda. We have been working with President Kagame, to whom I have deep respect and admiration for the last 6 years in the Broadband Commission, the Broadband Commission for Digital Development. Now we transform it also for the Sustainable Development Agenda, where he was the co-president with Carlos Slim and my dear friend Amadou Touré. At that time, he was the Director General of ITU. Now he's Executive Director of this Smart Africa Forum. We started this, I would say, incredible debate about the future of new technologies, how we leverage for development, for eradicating poverty, for competitiveness, for social inclusion, for solving the issues of education, of health, everything that is nowadays on the table. And it was not by chance that we offered President Kagame to become the co-chair, because exactly of his very strong vision of new technologies, of digital development for Rwanda, of his leadership, and also, I would say, of his very openness international for Africa, for the world. And this is how I came to know Rwanda. Of course, UNESCO has many projects here, many projects linked with youth, with education, with open educational resources, with technical vocational training, and I come to your second part of your question about history, memory, the genocide, this terrible, tragic history in Rwanda, but which is I would say, a very telling lesson for the world. UNESCO has a developed program. In the last 8 years, I support it strongly, our Holocaust education and prevention of genocide, and also learning and teaching about the Rwandan genocide, among others, something that we have to teach, that we have to educate. We have to teach also peace, human rights, human dignity, to understand how hatred can transform into violence, and also, which is very impressive, how to overcome these very dark pages in one's history on the basis of truth, justice, and reconciliation.
Indeed. Now, if we now transition back to the Transform Africa Summit right here, you form part of the 30% of the women that are taking part or are attending the Transform Africa Summit. These are data from what the Minister of Youth and ICT of Rwanda splashed on the screen earlier this morning when the launch of the blueprint was being made. And this brings us to the question of the involvement of ladies and women in ICT. Does this concern you that only 30% of the total participants, or those who are really interested in ICT, are women? This is in line with the gender divide as far as ICT is concerned.
Well, it does not only concern me, but I would say that we have been putting, and I have been putting, a strong emphasis within the Broadband Commission and wider in the UNESCO's activities, empowering women, particularly when it comes to new technologies, ICTs. In fact, I was co-chairing the working group within the Broadband Commission together with the CEO of GSSMA, where we have proposed very concrete recommendations into how to overcome this digital divide. And I would add something which is very alarming. The digital divide, in fact, has not closed, but has slightly increased in the last years. So we have to have a little bit more sophisticated, more elaborate, to have more strong political will to change it. We need, first and foremost, to be sensitive towards this. We have to have strong policies. We see this policy here in Rwanda, and this is why this morning also President Kagame spoke about it, and I was before that in a very important meeting with the First Lady, Mrs. Jeanette Kagame, who was speaking about health and new technologies and innovation, encouraging young people to innovate. We need to get more girls into ICT sector. First, we need to get more girls into STEM education, science, technology, mathematics, to encourage them. In order to do this, we have to have the right approach, teachers, sensitive teachers. We have to develop the respective curricula. Even sometimes in the curricula of this education, girls have to see their role models. We need to do that. We have a very specific UNESCO program, partnership with L'Oréal about women in science, where every year we give an award to women from the 5 continents for their achievements, and we already have 2 Nobel Prize winners in genetics and in biology. We have more than 2,000 young women researchers who have passed some training, fellowships in all different kinds of renowned universities and research centers. So it can be done, but there should be a political will. There should be a very targeted strategies to do it, and with the support of partnerships, private partners, governments, it can be done.
Right. I'm going to pick it from the political will, because what we all understand is that different, Africa is not one country. It is, it comprises of very many other different countries. And each of these countries seem to all have either the lack or their being of political will in their own due respect. Some have different priorities as well. This brings us to the question of commitments to even following up to the implementation of some of the smart cities and Transform Africa agendas. How do we ensure that we're all speaking one voice?
Well, UNESCO is an intergovernmental organization. UNESCO is our 195 member states. And I think this is very important. What you said is so true nowadays. We have the Sustainable Development Agenda. Yes. We have a specific goal for education, goal number 4, where we say inclusive, equitable, and quality education and lifelong learning for all with the specific targets. We have the inclusive cities, goal number 11. We have also goal number 5 about gender equality, and I can continue enumerating this. When we were elaborating these goals, it was a long process of consultative process with member states. So member states, political leaders have embraced these goals. They are theirs. Ownership is very important. What we are doing now, we have to hold accountable governments for what they have pledged to their own people, to the international community, and I would say to the others. Right. So how we do this? We do in different manners. We have an indicators. I'm speaking about education because I do believe, and Africa needs that, unless we massively invest in education, in skills, particularly when half of the population is young, maybe 60, 70% in the next decade, there won't be achievement in any of the Sustainable Development Goals. Young people want good education, they want skills, they want the opportunity to innovate, to imagine, to develop their skills. This is the only way for the future. And we have specific targets and indicators, and we are monitoring the implementation of these indicators. Or sometimes member states, governments in one particular region have a peer review. We convene them, they get together, they explain how they're achieving, what they're doing, how, so they hold each other accountable. Right. I think this is extremely important.
But how far can they go? as far as holding each other accountable in terms of, let's say, country X fails to honor the commitments? What can country A do, in terms of that peer review, in order to bring them back on board or to push them a little bit?
Well, this is, I believe, where partners like us or organizations like us are. Definitely there are countries which are struggling with the implementation for different reasons.
Right, and that's where we wrap up things here on Worldview. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Betty Callow. You should join me at 9 p.m. this evening. On Friday briefing, of course, we'll be shutting down the week in ways that, of course, you cannot get on any other channel. Keep it KTN News. This is where you get the whole story 24 hours a day. We'll see you 9 p.m. on Friday briefing. Till then, be blessed and enjoy the rest of your viewing. KTN News is the station. Goodbye.